This video presents the benefits of the Republic Act No. 8371, also known as Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997, to the Indigenous Cultural Communities or ICCs or Indigenous People or IPs, as well as the penalties and punishment to anyone who violates the Act. This Act was enacted on October 29, 1997 and took effect on November 22, 1997. It is an act to recognize, protect, and promote the rights of indigenous cultural communities or indigenous peoples, creating a National Commission on Indigenous Peoples, establishing implementing mechanisms, appropriating funds, therefore, and for other purposes. Some features of this law is as follows. First is the right to ancestral domain, such as lands, inland waters, coastal areas, and natural resources. ICCs or IPs has the right to ownership, develop lands and natural resources, to stay in territories, and in case of displacement, have temporary life support system and the right to return to their lands. They can regulate entry of migrants and have safe and clean air and water and access to integrated system. They also have rights to claim parts of reservation and resolve conflict according to their customary laws. In terms of ancestral land, they have the right to transfer the property to the same member, and if the land is transferred to a non-member, they have the right to redemption.
Right to self-governance and empowerment. This right shows respect to the indigenous people's values, practices, and institutions. It also recognizes the role of independent IPs organization. Under this right is to use their own justice systems, conflict resolution institutions, peace-building processes, and other customary laws. They also have the right to participate in decision-making through having a representative in local legislative councils, especially when it can affect their group. In addition to this, they have the right to determine and decide priorities for the development of their economic aspect and others. Social justice and human rights. It refers to the equal benefits acquired of an indigenous people, just like every member of society. This right includes equal protection and non-discrimination of IPs, their right to have protection and security during armed conflict and not recruiting them to the armed force against their will. They will have freedom from discrimination and right to equal opportunity and treatment, the right to basic services for the immediate, effective, and continuing improvement of their economic and social status. Furthermore, women of indigenous group also have the right of equality to men, while the children and the youths have the right to have a holistic protection, adequate, and integrated education system.
Cultural integrity provides protection of indigenous culture, traditions, and institutions. Educational system gives them access to various cultural opportunities like scholarship. This also recognizes cultural diversity wherein ICCs or IPs culture, traditions, histories, and aspirations should be appropriately reflected in all forms of education to eliminate prejudice and discrimination. Another is community intellectual rights, which lets them practice their cultural traditions and customs. Same goes about the religious, cultural sites, and ceremonies that should be preserved, respected, and protected because it is sacred area for ICCs or IPs. Right to indigenous knowledge, system, and practice, and to develop own science and technologies, while being granted access to biological and genetic resources. Programs for sustainable agro-technical development were also implemented under this law. This also provides fund for archaeological and historical sites.
Penalties in violation of Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997 or IPRA. Any person who commits violation of any of the provision of this act shall be punished in accordance with the customary laws of the ICCS, IPS. However, the penalty shall not be cruel and degrading or inhuman. Furthermore, death penalty of excessive fines shall not impose. Violator shall be punished by imprisonment of not less than 9 months, not more than 12 years, or a fine not less than 100,000 pesos, but not more than 500,000 pesos, or both fine and imprisonment upon the discretion of the court. In addition to this, violator shall pay for the damage as a consequence of the unlawful act.